Welcome to Review and Preview Problems 9-103 to 9-109 in the CCG book. 9-103 says, find the volumes of the solids below. A cylinder with a hole. So the first thing that comes to mind is I can find the volume of the larger cylinder and subtract out the volume of the smaller cylinder. So the diameter of my larger cylinder is 3 centimeters. So my radius is half of that at 1.5 centimeters. So I'm going to find the area of my base, which is 1.5 squared times pi, which is 2.25 pi times my height of 7 is 15.75 pi centimeters cubed. When I find the radius of my smaller cylinder, it would be 0.5, so I'm going to have 0.5 squared pi, which is 0.25 pi, times my height of 7, which is 1.75 pi centimeters cubed. I'm then going to subtract that piece out, so I have 14 pi centimeters cubed for the outside of my cylinder with a hollow center. A rectangular octagonal prism, if one of my side lengths is 2, I can take 360 divided by 8 because my octagon has 8 sides. I get 45 as my central angle. When I divide my central angle by 2, I get 22.5. When I divide 2 by 2, I get 1. I need to find the height. So the tangent of 22.5 equals the opposite over x. X is then going to equal 1 divided by the tangent of 22.5. So the height of this triangle is about 2.41. I can then find the area by taking 1 times 2.41. I'm not going to divide it by 2 because I need 2 sides of that. So I get 2.41. I have 8 of those triangles, so I multiply 2.41 by 8 to give me the area of my base of 19.28. I then need to multiply that by the height of my prism. So I get 134.96 inches cubed. 9-104, Jillian is trying to construct a square. She has started by constructing 2 perpendicular lines as shown at the right. If she wants each side of the square to have a length of k as shown below, decide how she should finish her construction. The first thing that she should do is she should construct an arc centered at P that is k units. So it would intersect N and M each once. These intersections we would call R and S. She should then construct 2 more circles with radius K centered at R So she creates another circle at R and a circle at S, where those two circles intersect would create the fourth vertice, which in fact would create a square if I had a compass to use. 9-105, without using a calculator, find the sum of the interior angles of a 1002-agon. Show all of your work. So if we have 1002 sides, we would first subtract 2 from that. So we would have 1,000 triangles. Multiply that by 180 because I know each triangle is 180 degrees. So that would tell me that my angles add up to 180,000 degrees. 9-106, York County, Maine is roughly triangular in shape. To help calculate its area, Sergio has decided to use a triangle to model the region, as shown at right. According to his map, the border with New Hampshire is 165 miles long, while the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean is approximately 100 miles long. If the angle at the tip of Maine is 43 degrees, as shown in the diagram, what is the approximate area of York County? So we can use the law of sines. So we first can use the law of sines to determine our missing side. So we're going to call that C. So C squared is equal to A squared, which is 165. So we'll say this is A, this is B, plus B squared, so 100 squared, minus 2 times A times B times the cosine of 43 degrees. So when we type this all into our calculator, so we get C squared is equal to 13,090 approximately 0.33. So when we take the square root of that, we get C is about 114.41. So about 114 miles long. So if we need to find the area, so because we actually have the included angle and 2 of the sides, we can take 1/2 of 165 times 100 and multiply that by the sine of 43 degrees. So even though you found the sides, we can then confirm by finding that third side that it's not a right triangle. And so when we type this in our calculator, we get approximately an area of 5,626.5 miles squared. 9-107, this problem is a checkpoint for exponential function problems. It will be referred to as checkpoint 9B. So the first thing that they'd like us to do is graph y equals 2 times 0.75 to the x power. So if we are graphing this, our initial value is starting at 2. Our multiplier is 1. Our multiplier is 0.75. So we know because this number is between 0 and 1 that our graph is decreasing. So you can do this a couple of different ways. You could type this into your graphing calculator. You can make an XY table. If you type it into your graphing calculator, you can hit the table button and quickly get the values so you don't have to plug them in. And you can see that yes, in fact, it is decreasing. And it is approaching. So at 1, we're at about 1.5. At 2, we're at about 1.125. At 3, we're at about 0.8. So you can see that your function is decreasing at an exponential rate. In problem B, it says write the equation for the exponential function based on the table below. So we can take our larger number and divide it by our number above it to get our multiplier, because division is the inverse of multiplication. So when you divide 121.67 by 52.9, you get 2.3. So f of x is how we start our function. We know our multiplier is 2.3 to the x power, and then we need to find our initial value. So we need to take 23 and divide it by 2.3 because it's the inverse. And we know that our starting value at 0 is 10. So f of x equals 10 times 2.3 to the x power. Letter C says the population of Flood River City is 42,000 people. Experts predict that the population will decrease 25% each year for the next 5 years. What will the population be in 5 years? So if we are starting out with 42,000 people, we're decreasing at 0.25. So we need to do 1 minus 0.25, which gives us a multiplier of 0.75. We raise that to the 5th power. We have approximately 9,967 people in our population. D says a share of orange stock that was worth $25 in 2000 was worth $60 in 2010. What is the annual multiplier and percent increase? So if I start with the year 2000 as 0 and have the year 2010 as 60, I can write an equation. My output is 60 after 10 years. I'm not sure what my multiplier is, but I know my initial value was 25. So I divide by 25. I take the 10th root of 60 over 25, which tells me that my B is approximately 1.09, which means because it's an increase, I add 1. So it's an increase of approximately 9%. 9-108 says copy the following words and their lines of reflection on your paper. So if I reflect, then use your visualization skills to actually reflect the image. So if I reflect this, over my axes, it should look something like that. When I reflect the word prism, it is going to be like a mirror and should look something like that. 9-109 is a multiple choice problem. Solve this problem without a calculator. Examine the triangle below. Examine the triangle below. Find the approximate value of x. Use the values in the trig table below. So if I have 62 degrees, I know that the opposite over hypotenuse, so the sine of 62 degrees is equal to x over 10. So sine of 62 degrees is 0.883 times 10 would be approximately 8.83, which is C.